What would you do if your own family broke your trust in the worst way possible and it was your child who paid the price? Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm 27 years old, and my daughter Grace is my whole world. She's 12, bright eyed, kind, and always smiling. She's the kind of child who brings light into any room, but one weekend, everything changed. I left Grace with my parents and my brother Jason for just 3 days. I never thought that decision would lead to the hospital or to one of the hardest moments of my life. Before I continue, tell me where are you watching from? Drop a comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe because what happened next is something every parent needs to hear. Being a single mom isn't easy, but Grace and I had found our rhythm. After I divorced Mark 5 years ago, I promised myself I'd give Grace a stable and loving life. Mark moved across the country for his job. He sends child support on time, but his visits are rare. Still, Grace understands. She's mature for her age. I've done my best to fill both roles, mom and dad, and most days it feels like we're doing just fine. My relationship with my parents, though, that's another story. My mom and dad, Harold and Martha, have always been difficult. On the outside, they look like the perfect family. They live in a big, beautiful wooden cabin by the lake. It has a private dock, forest trails, even a cozy fireplace. Grace loves going there. She thinks it's magical. But for me, that place brings back a lot of hard memories. Growing up, I was never good enough in their eyes. My dad was a famous surgeon. My mom was a school principal. They both expected perfection. Even when I got straight A's, it wasn't enough. My clothes were too casual. My job teaching wasn't prestigious enough. Every little thing I did was picked apart. And no matter how hard I tried, it never seemed to be right. Then there's my brother Jason. He's 3 years younger than me. But you'd think he was the king of the family. He followed in dad's footsteps, became an orthopedic surgeon, and suddenly he could do no wrong. My parents treated him like a hero. When Jason got his medical license, you'd think he'd won the Nobel Prize. Meanwhile, I felt like I barely existed in their eyes. Still, I didn't cut them off. Why? Because of Grace. I wanted her to know her grandparents. I wanted her to have a bigger family, and I knew they loved her in their own way. Grandpa Harold would take her fishing. Grandma Martha would bake cookies with her. And Uncle Jason told her fun stories about the hospital, stories that made her eyes go wide with curiosity. So when I got picked to represent my school at a big education conference in Chicago, I was nervous, but I said yes. This could help me become a department head, a role I had worked so hard for. I arranged for Grace to stay with my parents for the weekend. It's only 3 days, Mom, Grace said, smiling while she packed her favorite books. She was growing up so fast. At 12, she was still my little girl, but also starting to become her own person. Her dark hair was tied in a neat ponytail. Her blue eyes sparkled with excitement. I'll be fine. Grandpa said we might go hiking to that waterfall, she said, already dreaming of adventure. I smiled, trying to ignore the worry in my stomach. I checked her suitcase one more time and slipped in an extra sweater. It was April in Minnesota, and the weather could be tricky. I know you'll be fine, sweetie. Just remember to call me every night, okay? I will, she said, hugging me tight. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror and saw her waving from the porch. I didn't know it then, but that would be the last time I saw her standing on her own 2 feet for a while. The first 2 days went smoothly. Grace called me on Friday night. She told me they had gone for a boat ride and made s'mores by the fire. She sounded happy. I felt relieved. But Saturday night there was no call. I texted. No answer. I called. No response. I tried not to panic. Maybe they had bad signal. Maybe she was tired and fell asleep early. Sunday morning my phone finally rang. It was Jason. Hey, he said, his voice strangely casual. Grace had a little fall yesterday while we were hiking. Twisted her ankle, but she's okay. I sat up straight. Why didn't anyone call me last night? It wasn't serious, he replied. She just slipped on a rock. She was limping a bit, but Dad looked at it and said it wasn't broken. We didn't want to worry you. My heart was pounding. Is she in pain? A bit, but she's a trooper. You know Grace. I got home late that Sunday evening. My parents dropped Grace off at my apartment. She was pale. Too pale. Her smile was weak. She tried to act normal, but I knew something was wrong. She tried to walk to her room and collapsed. That's when I rushed her to the hospital. And what the doctors told me next made my blood run cold. I carried Grace into the ER myself. She was shaking. Her lips were pressed tight, trying not to cry, but I could see it in her eyes. She was in serious pain. The nurses moved fast. They got her into a wheelchair and rushed her back to get x-rays. I stayed right beside her, holding her hand. She was trying to be brave. That's who Grace is. But she kept whispering, "It hurts, Mom. It hurts so bad." An hour later, a doctor came in with a chart in his hand and a serious look on his face. "Miss Wilson?" he asked. "Yes." I stood up immediately. "Your daughter has a broken leg, a clean fracture, just above the ankle. She needs surgery to set the bone and prevent further damage. We'll take her in tonight." I felt like the ground disappeared beneath me. Broken? But my brother said she just twisted it. The doctor looked at me gently, but firmly.
This kind of break doesn't happen from a simple twist. She's been walking on it. The tissue around the fracture is very inflamed. It looks like she's been using it for at least a day or two. I blinked. They made her walk? He nodded slowly. That would explain the swelling and the extra bruising we're seeing. I couldn't speak. I sat down in the chair next to Grace and just stared at the floor. My parents, Jason, they knew. They had seen her limping. They had told me it was just a sprain. They had looked at her leg and told her to keep walking. They had ignored her pain. And now she needed emergency surgery. I stayed with her all night. I held her hand while the doctors worked. I talked to her while she slept under anesthesia. When the surgery was over, the surgeon came out and told me it had gone well. They'd placed a small metal rod to stabilize the bone. She'd need physical therapy, but she'd be okay. That was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. The next morning, I sat in the hospital room staring at my phone. I had missed calls from my mother, my father, and Jason, but I didn't want to talk to any of them. Not yet. A nurse brought Grace some juice and smiled at her. "You were very brave," she said. Grace nodded, her eyes tired but calm. "Can I talk to you about what happened?" I asked her gently once we were alone. She looked down at her hands. "Are you mad at me?" My heart broke all over again. "No, sweetie, never. I just need to know what really happened." Grace took a breath. "We went hiking on Saturday. Grandpa wanted to show me the waterfall. It was far, like really far. I told him I was tired, but he said I'd be fine. I listened, my stomach turning. We were climbing up some rocks near the stream, and I slipped. My leg twisted funny, and I fell. I cried. Uncle Jason looked at it and said it was probably just sore. Grandpa said I should walk it off. I clenched my jaw but stayed quiet. It hurt so bad, Mom, but they said we couldn't turn back, that it was too late, so I walked. I walked for like 3 hours. Tears started falling down her cheeks. I told them it hurt every step, but they kept saying I'd be fine. Grandma gave me some pain pills when we got home. I think they were strong ones. I slept a lot. I wrapped her in my arms. "You did nothing wrong, Grace. You were so strong. I'm so sorry this happened to you." That's when I made up my mind. I was going to confront them. That evening, I called Jason first. He answered right away. "Steph, we've been trying to call. How's Grace?" "She's out of surgery," I said coldly. "Her leg was broken." He paused. "Oh, I didn't think it was that bad. You're a surgeon, Jason. You looked at her leg, and you still let her walk on it for hours. I mean, Dad thought it was just a sprain. We didn't want to panic you. You didn't want to panic me." My voice rose. "What about her? She was in agony, Jason. She could have done permanent damage." He sighed. "I'm sorry. We didn't think." "No, you didn't." I hung up. Next I called my parents. My mother answered. "Stephanie, we've been so worried. You should have called me the second Grace got hurt. She said she was okay. She's 12, Mom. That's your job." Harold got on the line. "Stephanie, calm down. We've raised kids before, and you've forgotten what it means to care for one." I said. "Grace is in the hospital, with a metal rod in her leg, that you made her walk on." There was silence. I spoke again. "You all lost my trust, all of you," and I hung up the phone. That night I sat by Grace's bedside, watching her sleep. I brushed her hair gently and promised myself, never again. She would never be put in harm's way like that again. No job, no promotion, no family connection was worth her safety. When Grace was released from the hospital 2 days later, she was still weak and in pain. Her leg was in a cast, and she had crutches to help her get around. But she smiled when I wheeled her through the automatic doors and into the fresh air. We drove home slowly. Grace looked out the window, quiet but thoughtful. I reached over and held her hand at every red light. "You don't have to go back there," I said gently, "to their house, ever again. Not unless you want to." She nodded. "I don't." That was all I needed to hear. I called the school the next morning and took 2 weeks off to be with her full time. My principal was understanding. Thankfully, they had already seen how committed I was. The conference in Chicago had gone well, and I was still in the running for the department head position. But right now, my only focus was Grace. We spent our days watching movies, reading books and talking. Real talking. Grace told me things I hadn't realized before. Little ways my parents had made her uncomfortable, like criticizing her posture, or calling her dramatic when she felt emotional. "They said I had your sensitive streak," she told me one night while we painted her toenails a soft sky blue. I paused. "They used to say the same thing to me. Is that bad?" "Not at all," I said, brushing her hair. "Being sensitive means you feel deeply, and that's a beautiful thing." After a week, my parents texted asking to visit. I didn't respond right away. I needed time to think. Finally, I wrote back. "Grace needs time. So do I. We're not ready to see you yet. I'll reach out if that changes." It was short, but it was the most powerful message I'd ever sent them. They replied with a single word. "Understood." Jason didn't try to reach out again. That hurt more than I expected. He and I had grown up together. I remembered when we built forts in the backyard, or stayed up watching late-night cartoons under the covers. But now, all I could think about was how quickly he dismissed Grace's pain, how fast he chose silence over responsibility. My best friend Vanessa came over that Saturday to bring dinner and give me a break. She brought pasta, garlic bread, and a huge tub of ice cream. "I saw what happened on your Instagram post," she said. "I can't believe your family didn't take her to the hospital." I nodded. "I'm still trying to process it." The worst part is, I left her there because I trusted them, because I thought she'd be safe. Vanessa reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You know what this means, right? What? You're not the kid in that house anymore, you're the mom now. You get to make the rules. She was right. For years I had walked on eggshells around my parents. I had gone along with their comments, ignored their judgment, and swallowed my feelings. But now, I had someone else to protect, someone far more important than keeping the peace, Grace. The next few days were quiet, and for the first time in a long time peaceful. We cooked together, me doing the chopping while Grace stirred with her one good leg propped up. We started a puzzle on the dining room table. We even made a little recovery chart, where she got to put a sticker every day she did her physical therapy exercises. One night, while tucking her in, she said something that made me stop cold. Mom, do you think they love me? I sat down on the edge of her bed. Of course they do. But sometimes people love in the wrong way. They think they're helping when they're not. They forget to listen. She nodded slowly. They didn't listen when I said it hurt. I know, baby, and that was wrong. She looked up at me. You always listen. Tears filled my eyes. And I always will. That weekend, Grace asked if we could write letters, not to my parents but to each other. I want to tell you how I feel, she said. So we did. We wrote letters and traded them, reading them out loud while sitting on the couch in our pajamas. Her letter said, Dear Mom, thank you for always being there for me. Even when I'm sad or scared, you never make me feel bad about it. You make me feel strong and safe. I'm lucky to have you. I love you so much. Love, Grace. Mine said, Dear Grace, you are the bravest girl I know. You've been through so much, and you still smile. I'm proud of you every single day. I'm sorry I left you in a place that hurt you, even if I didn't know it would. I will always protect you from now on. Always. Love, Mom. After that night, something inside me shifted. I felt lighter, stronger, not because everything was okay, but because I was finally standing in my truth. I didn't owe anyone silence. I didn't owe anyone loyalty that hurt my daughter. I owed Grace protection. I owed her honesty. I owed her me, the real me, the mom who would fight for her, stand beside her, and never let anyone dismiss her pain again. It had been almost 3 weeks since Grace's surgery. The cast on her leg was still there, but she was getting stronger. Every day she could put a little more weight on it. She had even started hopping to the kitchen on one crutch, proud of herself when she could balance without help. I had gone back to work part-time, just a few classes in the morning while Vanessa stayed with Grace. My students were happy to see me. Some had even made cards for Grace. Teenagers can surprise you sometimes with how kind they are. One Monday morning, I got called into the principal's office. I felt that old familiar nervousness as I walked down the hallway. For a moment I was 16 again, about to be scolded for talking too much in class, but this time it was different. Mr. Daniel stood up when I entered. Stephanie, I'll get right to the point. The board reviewed your conference work. They were impressed. My heart thudded in my chest. You're being offered the department head position, he said with a smile. I blinked. Really? Yes, we believe you're ready. I smiled so wide it almost hurt. Thank you. I really needed this. Your dedication, especially with everything going on, hasn't gone unnoticed. As I walked out of the office, I felt tears in my eyes. After everything, after the pain, the fear, the doubt, I was finally getting something I had worked so hard for. That night, I told Grace while we made popcorn. Guess what? I said, tossing her a piece. What? I got the promotion. Her face lit up. Mom, that's amazing. I laughed. Yeah? You think your mom can handle it? You already handle everything, she said. This will be easy. We high-fived, and for a moment the world felt light again. But peace doesn't last long when there are still loose ends. On Wednesday night, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but something told me to pick it up. Hello? Stephanie, it's Jason. I paused. I know you don't want to talk, he said, but please, just listen. I stayed silent. I made a mistake. A big one. I should have trusted my instincts. I should have taken Grace to the ER that day. You're a doctor, I said, my voice quiet but firm. You knew what a break looked like. I did, he admitted, but I didn't want to cause drama. Dad told me not to overreact, and I listened. I swallowed hard. She was in pain, Jason, and you ignored her. I know, and I hate myself for it. I was scared, not of the injury, of Dad. That made me pause. I always wanted to please him, he said. You know that, even when I was a kid. And that weekend, I fell back into that same pattern. But it hurt someone who didn't deserve it. I sat down at the kitchen table. I miss you, Steph, he said, and I miss Grace. I sighed. It's not about you and me anymore. It's about her. She needs to feel safe. I understand. I hope someday you'll let me try to make it right. I didn't answer right away. But for the first time, I heard something in his voice I hadn't heard before. Regret. After the call, I talked to Grace. Uncle Jason called, I said, brushing her hair back as she sat in bed with her sketchbook. She looked up. What did he say? He said he was sorry, that he made a mistake, that he wants to fix things. She thought for a moment. Do I have to talk to him? No, sweetheart. Not unless you want to. She looked down at her drawing. It was a picture of a small girl with a big red shield standing between her and a shadowy figure. Maybe one day, she said quietly, but not now. That's okay, I said, kissing her forehead. We go at your pace. Later that week, I received a letter in the mail from my parents. It wasn't long. Just a simple card with my mother's handwriting. Stephanie, we are truly sorry. We failed you in Grace. We let pride and old habits blind us to what was really important.
We hope one day we can earn back your trust. Love, Mom and Dad. No excuses, no blame, just regret. It didn't erase the hurt, it didn't fix everything, but it was a start. I showed Grace the card. She read it, then passed it back to me without a word. I'm not ready to see them either, she said. And that was okay. Spring turned into summer, and the cast finally came off. Grace started physical therapy, and she handled it like a champ. We celebrated with a girls' day out, ice cream, the bookstore, and a movie. One afternoon, we sat on our small balcony, sipping lemonade and watching the sky turn pink. Do you think things will go back to normal? Grace asked. I looked at her. I don't think we'll ever go back to the way things were, but maybe that's not a bad thing. She smiled. Yeah, maybe now we have our version of normal, and she was right. Normal didn't mean perfect. It didn't mean having a picture-perfect family or holidays with everyone smiling fake smile. Normal meant trust. It meant safety. It meant a mom and daughter who listened to each other, protected each other, and kept moving forward. Together, July arrived with warm sunshine and the smell of cut grass in the air. Grace's leg had healed enough for short walks without crutches, and she beamed with every step. Want to do something fun today? I asked one morning, setting her favorite cereal on the table. She looked up, spoon in hand. Like what? I hesitated. What if we go to the lake? Her eyebrows were, Grandma Grance's lake? No, I said gently, just the lake, not their house. We'll park at the public access. Bring lunch. You've always loved the water. She smiled slowly. Yeah, that sounds nice. We packed sandwiches, apples, and juice. I brought a blanket and bug. Grace brought her sketch pad. The lake shivered as we arrived. The same lake where, just months ago, everything had changed. Where my trust was broken. Where Grace had been hurt. Not just physically, but emotionally. But today, the air felt different. Lighter. We spread the blanket under a shady tree. Grace slipped off her sandals and dipped her toes in the water. It's not as cold as I thought. She laughed. I watched her for a while, feeling proud. Proud of how she'd healed. Not just her bones, but her spirit. Mark, she said after a while. Can I write something? Of course. What are you writing? She looked out. A letter. To them. Not to send. Just for me. I nodded. That's a great idea. She sat under the tree, writing quietly for a long time. When she was done, she folded the paper, walked to the edge of the water, and tossed it in. We watched it float, then slowly sink.
Goodbye, she whispered. I stood beside her. How do you feel? Better, she said. Lighter. We didn't need a perfect ending. We just needed peace. A week later, I finally made a decision I had been putting off. I sat down on my laptop and opened a new email. I stared at the blank screen for a few minutes, then began typing. To Harold and Martha Wilson, subject boundaries. Dear Mom and Dad, I've thought a lot about how to say this. This isn't easy, but it's necessary. I want to be honest with you because I've spent too many years keeping quiet. What happened to Grace wasn't just an accident, it was a choice. A choice not to listen to her, not to believe her pain. That choice has consequences. I appreciate your apology, but healing takes more than words. It takes time, and more importantly, it takes change. Right now, Grace and I need space. We need safety. We need boundaries. This isn't goodbye forever, but it is goodbye for now. If in the future you're willing to truly listen to her, to me, then maybe we can rebuild something new. Not what we had, but something better. Until then, please respect our space. Stephanie 1A. I hit send. Then I sat back and closed my eyes. It felt like letting go of a weight I didn't realize I'd been carrying since I was a child. As summer went on, Grace started swimming lessons again. She was nervous at first, afraid her leg might give out. But after the first lesson, she came running to me with a huge grin. I did it, she yelled. I swam the whole pool. We celebrated with pizza and root beer floats. School started in the fall, and I stepped into my new role as department head. It was hard work, but fulfilling. I finally felt like my voice mattered. And Grace, she blossomed. She joined the art club, made new friends, and even gave a short speech at a school assembly about getting back up after something knocks you down. I cried the whole time. One chilly October weekend, I got a text from Jason. No pressure, but I'll be in town next week for a medical conference. I'd love to see you, even just for coffee. No expectations. I showed the message to Grace. What do you think? I asked. She looked thoughtful. Maybe just you first. Not me yet. Okay, I said. I'll let him know. I met Jason at a little coffee shop near the school. He looked tired, older. We sat outside, wrapped in jackets, sipping hot drinks. I'm glad you came, he said. I didn't expect you to. I nodded. I didn't come for you. I came for closure. He looked down. Fair. We talked for a long time. He apologized again, and this time I believed him. He didn't make excuses. He didn't try to defend anyone. He just listened. When I left, he stood up and hugged me gently. I'm here if she ever wants to talk. No pressure, just love. It was the most honest thing he'd ever said to me. That winter, Grace and I started a new tradition. Every Sunday, we'd sit at the kitchen table with hot cocoa and write one good thing that happened during the week. We put the notes in a jar. Some were big, quit the misto. We kan klavam hakkens, dumpataniklis to me. I swam across the pool. Some were small. We laughed really hard at dinner. The cat sat in my lap for 20 minutes. On New Year's Eve, we opened the jar and read them all out loud. When we finished, Grace looked at me and said, "This was a hard year." It was, but it was also a good year, she said, because we found our way back. I smiled. Yeah, we did. Family isn't always the people you're born to. Sometimes it's the people who show up, who listen, who protect, and most of all, the people who choose love over pride. Every single time. And in this house, this small but warm, love-filled house, that's exactly what Grace and I have. Not perfect, but ours. And that's more than enough.